Hello, my name is Randy Wilson, and this is 804 The Culture, podcast for the culture, from the culture, with the honor of having a very distinct guest today with us, Mayor Levar Stoney. How you doing, Mayor?
What's up, Randy? Thanks for having me, brother.
Very happy to have you, and very happy that we have an opportunity to have you on 804 The Culture, where we have 40,000 Richmonders tuned in through Instagram and social media platforms to listen to what you have to say as you are, transitioning.
Transitioning? You act like I'm dying or something like that.
No, not like that. But we think you're transitioning, obviously coming to a close of mayor, and looks like you have a bright future ahead as the Attorney General of Virginia.
Lieutenant Governor
of Virginia.
Yeah, well, there's 100 and, I lose count every day, but 113 or so days left in this administration. Mm-hmm. And, I look back at, the roughly 8 years I've had an opportunity to serve, and I still pinch myself each and every day. That a kid born to a couple teenagers, mother was 16, father was 18, raised by his grandmother, on her Social Security check, that I got an opportunity. Keyword opportunity to be the mayor of Virginia's capital city. When I was a little kid, checking out those books, on the presidents and running for, for student body president in elementary school and middle school, I never thought that one day I could be the mayor of Virginia's capital city. And so this has been an honor. These last roughly 8 years to serve as the mayor of my community that I love. This is a place that's my home. I will die here. I'm going to raise my child here. And I like to think that, once all of this is said and done, once the history is written, that will look fondly upon our administration, what we did over the course of these 8 years.
That's actually a great place to start. We have a lot of things we want to talk to you about, but I think there's a great place to start. We are actually interested in hearing from you as it pertains to how would you summarize what you feel your legacy as mayor of Richmond. How do you think people are going to look back at your term, your 2 terms as mayor of Richmond? What do you think they're going to summarize that and say?
Well, top line, right? When the historians write what occurred during the Stoney administration, they'll speak about the fact that I led this city through a 100-year pandemic. Sometimes as we fast forward, we're here in 2024 now, we forget that 4 years ago, we were in the midst of a pandemic. Mm-hmm. We were all isolated, people couldn't go to work. People were working from home. We were just living a life that we've never lived before. And I had to be the voice of caution and to be a health leader as well. These are things that you don't get taught or aren't in any manual or any guidebook when you're the mayor. So they're obviously going to talk about the pandemic. They're going to talk about the summer of 2020 and the social unrest. They're going to talk about I removed those Confederate monuments. Now that's
they can talk about that.
Yeah, they're going to talk about that for sure. That's what they'll boil it down to, right? But I look at where we are today compared to where we were a decade ago, and I think there's room to talk about the fact that, now we have reduced poverty by 22% here in the city, over 26% over the course of the last decade. We've been able to now. I would say people are more prosperous. 40% increase in household median income, 50% increase in per capita personal income. We have a AAA credit rating. The city of Richmond, an urban locale in the Commonwealth of Virginia, has a AAA credit rating from Wall Street. No one would ever have thought that. And that has allowed us, we're doing things that we've never done before.
That doesn't really get I don't know if I really ever hear that in the media. Why does that not get attention?
So let me talk about this real quick, because I feel like when the Richmond Times-Dispatch ran this story about us being a AAA, they kind of threw cold water on it. Like, yeah, you're AAA, but this is wrong and that is wrong. Like, criticize. That's all that sometimes I think it's the calling card of some of our media outlets. And here's the thing. I do what I do. I don't do it for accomplishments or accolades or anything of the sort. I do it because I'm here to deliver results. And if you say what you want to do in the beginning and you actually do it, I think people should recognize that this was an idea. He said it was a goal, and they achieved the goal. My goal was to show other localities, to show people here in Richmond, to show folks beyond Richmond that a place like ours, with the history we've had, with our finances and whatnot, can actually be a AAA credit rated city. And guess what? We are in a handful of AAA credit rated cities. Henrico County is AAA rated. Chesterfield County is AAA rated. The Commonwealth of Virginia is AAA rated. And now the city of Richmond is AAA rated. Now, we do have a hopeful goal in the future that not only just one credit rating agency, we have Fitch right now, but S&P and Moody's one day. And guess what this does? This allows for the city to spend less on infrastructure projects for the future. So your sidewalks, your roads, your facilities, community centers, police precincts, firehouses, that costs money. Everyone has a credit card. They know how credit cards work. I hope you know how the credit card works. But essentially, we get a lower interest rate on these future projects than we've ever had before because we have a AAA designation, essentially making your dollar as a taxpayer go further. That's what that's all about. Richmond has that. Not Henrico. Not talking about Henrico. They already had it. Not talking about Chesterfield. We're talking about Richmond.
Yeah.
Richmond.
Pretty big deal.
That's a huge deal. It's a huge deal.
And it's worth the recognition.
Here's the thing. I get it. We have not solved every single problem in a city like ours, a city that is challenged with, poverty. But guess what? We made some damn good progress. How many cities have a guaranteed income program? Essentially basic income, right? We give $500 a month to families here in the city to make their ends meet, right? Well, we were the first locality in the entire Commonwealth of Virginia to institute such a program. We went from pilot to putting in the budget, institutionalizing it. That's a big deal. This is stuff that Andrew Yang would talk about. My good friend Michael Tubbs, who is the former mayor of Stockton, California, and now a candidate for lieutenant governor as well, he championed this. He came to me and said, "You know what, Mayor? I think you should focus on, you should pilot guaranteed income." And I said, "In Virginia? Are you serious?" And he said, "I guarantee you would help a lot of people that you wouldn't even think of." And sure enough, the stories that come out of first the pilot program, but now to institutionalize it, that it's in our budget for the long term, that families now, we're doing right now, returning citizens, putting money in their pockets. And what we see from guaranteed income, essentially a basic income, is that everybody makes it to the end of the month, right? But how are your finances looking on the 25th of the month, the 27th of the month? There's a high likelihood if you're working paycheck to paycheck, you're reaching a fiscal cliff. And what I want to ensure is that that family with those kids aren't falling over the cliff.
Yeah.
$500 may not seem a lot, but for folks who are living paycheck to paycheck, who have limited assets and constrained incomes, it goes far. It goes very far. People don't also know about this, Randy, that we're sending RPS graduates to J. Sargent Reynolds for free. If they want to go off and get an associate's degree, a credential, we will pay for that.
Say it one more time. Now, I don't know if everyone heard that.
We are sending RPS graduates to community college for free.
Yeah, that's a blessing.
Free.
That's a blessing.
We had a surplus a couple years back of, I forget how much, $1.7 million. I used that $1.7 million to create an endowment, working with an organization here in town, a nonprofit called GRASP, Greater Aspiration Scholarship Program. Now they will ensure that you maximize your financial aid without debt, and then we will add the rest. And that will allow for a kid who graduates from RPS schools to go to community college for free.
Let me ask you something. As you're approaching the end of your term.
Yep.
And I don't want to get into the new candidates yet. That's later on. I don't want to get there yet. But you're hearing what's going on. You're seeing, you're amongst the news. You're listening. Do you feel necessary that it's important that you go out making sure that people hear you tell them, remind people what you've done?
Oh, for sure.
Because when you speak now versus coming in, there's a whole, and I'm interested in you to answer this also. You've grown a lot over the past 8 years. I'm interested on your perspective on how you've grown, but just from a listener, you speak with a whole different level of conviction. So as you're coming out, to me, it almost sounds like y'all gonna hear me sing these accolades. You're going to hear it because you may think that this role that you're stepping into is what all you think it's going to be, but you haven't been in it like I've been in it for 2 terms. And I that's kind of what I'm hearing in your voice. Correct. When you're, look, let me let you know this, and this. This is what we've done.
You are, I'm sure you're a church-going person, right?
I believe in God. I'm a Christian guy. Yeah. You know, I got a lot of room for improvement, though.
we all got a lot of room for improvement.
Yeah, definitely.
But I let the work speak for me.
Yeah.
Let my work speak for me. And sometimes you have to tell your story as well.
Yeah.
Because if you depend on others to tell the story, they will tell another story for you. So I'm here to tell my story, right? Yeah. To tell the story of the city of Richmond. Because you would think in a city that is growing, that is thriving, that in its own right there, right? Mm-hmm. A city that's gained population, that economically is doing well, that is culturally doing well, right there, you would say, that's a good 8 years right there. Mm-hmm. Places like Denver and other cities around the country, if you check those 3 boxes, economically, population-wise, culturally, that you're doing well, you're getting accolades like first in CNN for best place to visit, best place to live in the Commonwealth of Virginia by Travel Leisure Magazine. If you check those boxes right there, people will say, oh, that's a successful 8 years.
Yeah.
But I recognize that there are always alternative opinions out there. Yeah. And like I said, I did not get in this job for accolades. I did not get in this job for banners that say mission accomplished. Mm-hmm. I got into this work because I wanted to deliver for people, right? Particularly people who have been marginalized, pushed into the shadows of this city, who are rendered second, third class citizens. You know, I for a long time, I said it on the campaign trail in 2016 that we have to ensure that Richmond Public Schools isn't pumping out second-class citizenship, right? That when you get that diploma, it means something, that you can do something here in Richmond with that diploma. It doesn't mean that you are destined for second-class citizenship. And with the numbers that have come out, the facts that are in the census, more people are doing better over the course of the last 8 years, last decade, because of our administration. Now, does that mean that all the problems are solved? Hell no. That's why we have elections, because your job, the next mayor's job, is to...
Did you say your job is like I should be the next mayor?
You should try that. You should try that. We'll talk about that too. But the job of the next mayor is this is about value add, right? It doesn't. It just doesn't end. Right? You're like, okay, that was the Stoney administration, and now we close that book fully. No, it's the next chapter. You're turning the page. Yeah. And when I turn the page, you get to write, what's the next chapter all about? Yeah. Right? What's that all about? And so Dwight Jones, and here's the thing, you have a whole lot more appreciation for your predecessors now than you do as a candidate. I have a whole lot more appreciation for my predecessor, Dr. Dwight C. Jones, now than I as a candidate, because he told me, and I had to find out for myself, son, this job is hard. This job is difficult. There's a degree of difficulty to this job that I don't think people understand. You can't, as you stated, you can't just be one person every day, because you can go from a ribbon cutting to a vigil. You can go from a celebration to a tragedy, all in one day, all in 24 hours.
Yeah. COVID can happen.
COVID can happen, right? Yeah. You have to be everything to a lot of people. And there's the thing, you are not going to make everyone happy. Now, I'll admit, I could sit here and go verse by verse on all the great things we've done for the city, but I'm going to be honest with you. Have we made everyone happy? No, we have not. And when I started out, I had like internal polling had me at like a 75% approval rating. Right. And my belief is I didn't get into this work to have a 75% approval rating. What you going to do with that? You got to, that doesn't change the trajectory of a child growing up in Whitcomb Court. That doesn't change the facts of life for a family growing up living in Hillside Court. So I was like, well, we got to use this for something, for some good. And that's when I went out there and said, you know what, we got to build new schools here in the city of Richmond. And some folks would not have done it. Some folks would not have asked the patrons of restaurants to provide a little bit more on every meal to ensure that we can build 3 new schools in the city of Richmond. And we did. And now we got one school's under renovation with Fox Elementary School after the tragic fire. And then we got a new school coming on the South Side in Richmond High School for the Arts.
Yeah.
I believe that jobs like this are about sticking your neck out. Now, here's the thing. I'm not asking folks to be reckless, to be crazy and do something stupid. But you got to take some chances. You got to take risk. This job is about taking some risk, because if you don't take a little risk, you're not going to move the ball forward, right? So what are you willing to risk for the ideas that you are promoting during your campaign? That is the question I would ask some of these candidates, right? If you want to see more money for schools, if you want to see more money towards homelessness, if you want to see more dollars for affordable housing, so what are you willing to do?
I think we'll clip that. Because the candidates are watching right now. We've had all the candidates except Maurice, and we will have him on the show, but I think I will clip that because I've asked every one of the candidates. I've said to them pretty much what you just shared. There's so many great things and reasons in regard to why people want to live in the city of Richmond, want to visit the city of Richmond. And when I say this next part, I see the change in affect. I say, but candidates will always be political. They don't like when I say that. They don't like it. But the reality of it is when you're working to earn a position, you come in with talking about all the things you'll do. And what's interesting to me is that while everybody loves this great city, right? They have so many things that they'll talk about what they will do, what they will change. I'm like, but can you speak to the stability of where things are right now and how you will build from it? And I've got the answers. You have to go check out the interviews to see. I've got some answers, but to me, that's kind of what I don't like in that process.
Can I say this, Randy? Think about where the city was when Governor Wilder took over as mayor.
Wilder?
Yes, Wilder, as first strong mayor.
Yeah.
First strong mayor in this form of government. And
think about where we want him on the show because we know that we.
And here's the thing.
That's gonna
me and the governor sometimes don't see eye to eye. But I think the governor recognizes that I'm in the arena, and when you're in the arena, you have to have a little thick skin. And so we may not agree on every policy position, but I have an utmost respect for Governor Wilder because I do believe the strong mayor form of government has been good for Richmond because you look at the time frame we're at now in Richmond's history, fast forward 20 years from the 2004 election to today, you have not seen any city council person who's been indicted. There has not been city council people who've gone to jail. Remember, there was a time period there in the 90s, part of the 80s probably as well, that we were there were council people who were getting indicted and going to jail. That is a government that is dysfunctional. That is a government that doesn't work. Now, you may disagree with how the paper is being pushed over at City Hall. That's understandable. The job of mayor is you got to do both. You got to push paper and you got to push the envelope. I will be the first one here to say that all the paper pushing has not always been perfect. However, don't judge me against the almighty, judge me against the alternative. And look where we are today than where we were before. There are some people who have moved to Richmond, they have no context of where this city was a decade ago, 20 years ago. They just see, what the Richmond Times-Dispatch may print or what someone may say on Twitter. They have no context of where we were a decade ago. They have no context with the fact that when I first became mayor, 30% of the roads were considered in good condition. 30%. Now, 73% of the roads are in good condition. Now, there are some people who live in the areas that have that 27% that we need to do a better job on. But if you look at the roads today in Richmond compared to the roads we had 10 years ago, we are far better. There are more bike lanes than there once were. Right? I know bike lanes get on some people's nerves, but guess what? It slows traffic down. It's connected. It's more connected than it ever once was. That was an issue when I first became mayor. Folks were like, what are you going to do about bike lanes? We need more. We just had UCI.
I'm one of those people.
We just had UCI. And I was like, we're going to connect them. And because at one time, the bike lane would begin and then would end just randomly. And you'd be like, damn, with the bike, now I'm in the street. But now we have a more connected bike infrastructure than we ever had before. And so people, I don't want to have to quote Kamala Harris, But some folks like you just didn't fall from a coconut tree, right? Like there needs to be some context to this stuff.
Yeah.
And some folks don't have the context.
I want to pivot a little bit because I want to talk about the new Carmax. But before we get there, you didn't answer.
Oh, that's also a part of the legacy right there, right?
Yeah.
Well, folks write the history.
Don't get there too far.
Okay,
though.
all right, sorry.
Because I want you to answer where do you feel like you've changed? How have you changed? I mean, other than being a husband and a father and, maybe a couple more gray hairs now, okay?
Yes.
Other than that,
Yes.
okay? How do you feel like Levar Stoney has changed? Because, I mean, you're a great storyteller. You've talked about, we've heard the evolution of you from childhood up, but not over the past 8 years in regard to when you lay your head down at night and you think about just who you are as a man. How do you feel like you've grown as an individual?
Well, Randy, number one, to be 35 years old and become the chief executive of a municipality, you essentially are forced to, no one's forcing me to do this, but a part of the job is you have to grow up, you have to grow in front of people.
Yeah.
Right? You will see someone grow from 35 to 43. It's hard to see growth in someone when they're 55 to 63, right? But when you're 35 years old, people are going to see you grow. They're going to see you age, and people are seeing me age. That's okay.
You haven't went just for men. You haven't made the.
I have not.
You're not gonna do it.
I've gained a few pounds as well. But I turned those pounds into some muscle as well. But also you're going to see me grow as a leader, I think. And here's the thing: I'm not a perfect leader. I will never ever. When I talk to young people, I'm not a perfect leader. I'm a better leader now than I was at age 35. And let me tell you why I'm a better leader. Because I've experienced some things that, no one is, when we were running in 2016, there was no person that was the mayor. Jack Berry had never been mayor. Joe Morrissey had never been mayor. John Balaus had never been mayor. Michelle Mosby had never been mayor. But we're running for an office with the expectation that you're going to be the mayor. But I remind folks, the folks who are running today, none of these folks have ever been mayor before. You will have to grow in the role. Your first 6 months may be a little rough because you think that someone's going to guide you around City Hall and tell you where everything's going to be, and they're not. That's just unfortunately how the way bureaucracy works. Now, unlike the previous administration, I have budgeted for a true transition. It's the first time ever. Like the transition you get when you become the governor of the Commonwealth, you're going to get that now for mayor. I'm going to get you office space. You're going to have phones. You're going to have a budget so you can actually do the work of preparing yourself to be the next mayor of the city of Richmond. For me, I have thicker skin now. Less shit gets under my skin now than it used to. When I was 35, I was probably a little bit too sensitive about what people would say on Twitter or social media. And I used to actually utilize that all the time. I would use that as a way to, I guess that's like, oh, if I'm looking at Twitter, I know what's going on in the city of Richmond. Wrong. Looking at Twitter, looking at TikTok, looking at Instagram, looking at Facebook is not going to tell you what's going on in the city of Richmond. You have to be in the community. You have to hear it from people, just from their mouths instead of hearing it from some people on a keyboard. My whole thing about Twitter, well, I'm a little tangent right here. If you can't show your name, if I have to be Levar M. Stoney on Twitter and you can be, RVA, whatever pseudonym, then I don't want to hear from you, right? If you got a problem, you got something to say, put your name on it. Put your name on it. So to me, going on Twitter is not the best way to do constituent services. Yeah. Because you got all these bots, you got all these folks some who don't live in Richmond, folks who live out in Hanover. At the end of the day, our responsibility as servants, public servants, are to the people who pay taxes, people who vote here in the city, who reside here in the city of Richmond. You may actually pay taxes here in Richmond, but you may you may actually reside in Powhatan.
Yeah, we
got some folks like that.
We have a few of those that ran for office.
But I'll just finish here with this. Like, my skin is thicker. I let less things get under my skin. I would say I'm still as passionate as I was when I got elected in 2016. I wake up passionate. You know, if you talk to my team,
that's pretty impressive.
You talk to my team, I'm texting them all day long about, you see what they're doing here? You see what they're doing over there? Why aren't we doing this? Why aren't we doing that? What does this story mean? Why, like, I'm on them every day.
That's impressive.
Even on the, and they're saying, what they are happy about is that, thank God he got married. And thank God he has a child now, because during the weekends, I would just be like, texting them, we should be doing this, we should do it. Now, they may hear from me, but they don't hear from me as frequently because I'm spending time with my family.
I heard some laughs from your people back behind the camera.
Because that means they're working 24/7, and no person should work 24/7.
That's pretty impressive. I mean, because when you look at, professional athletes, musicians, artists, a lot of healthcare professionals, I mean, people at some point do kind of get a little exhausted. It's hard to maintain that same motor, and it's impressive that you still got it.
I can probably count on one hand how many vacations I've taken.
I hope that changes.
As mayor.
I hope that changes. I hope that changes.
I think my wife, Brandy would have a problem with me not us doing something, so that has to change. But, I got a campaign to run.
Yeah, you raised a point, though. Look, I know for time, I got to get these things out. You raised a point that came from our audience, because 2016, I think, was the last time that there was an election where it was open seat.
That's right.
So how do you compare this current election to that time? Because it's been on record. I've been one to pretty much say it also. This is a little bit more boring than the 2016 time. 2016 there was just bigger personalities.
Oh yes.
Oh yes. But so how do you compare it?
Well, first,
and that was their question. That's from the audience.
For as the sitting occupant in the office, boring is somewhat good for me, right? Because that means there aren't major fires out there policy-wise, right? There aren't major issues that we know. We have essentially put the guardrails on, here's what the issue should be: housing, education, public safety. And every candidate can point to all the things that we are doing over at 900 East Broad Street to tackle all three of those major issues, right? There's nothing that's like totally out of control. However, when it's so boring like this, you have to find something to talk about. And so instead of talking about pushing the envelope, you end up talking about pushing paper. And so they're talking about, FOIA. They're talking about the finance department, right? Which only touches a small percentage of certain residents, in the city who actually have stepped up in public polling and said, this is my issue. The vast majority of people in the city, the three issues I laid out, housing, education, and safety, are the top three issues. And I have not heard any robust plans to add to what the current administration is doing. Or if you disagree with what we're doing, we should hear it. If you disagree with our policy positions, our approach, those three major issues, then let's hear it then. But have you heard that?
No.
You've probably heard more about who the next chief administrative officer is going to be than you've heard about what they're going to do to stymie gun violence.
Yeah.
Or how we're going to build more affordable housing.
Yeah.
Do they differ from the approach that this administration has taken? I haven't heard anything. You hear more phrases like shiny objects, these buzzwords, but you haven't heard on how they're going to expand the tax base.
I feel like the competitiveness within you, I bet you wouldn't mind being on that stage just to have the conversation. You're happy to go on to another position, obviously, but there's a part of you that wants to be in these conversations.
Well, I'm a very competitive person, and I don't miss going to the 29 plus forums I did my first time around in 2016 and the few debates that we have, but I'm competitive. And so when I hear misinformation, when I hear someone who doesn't have the facts totally right, I have no problem in correcting you.
Yeah, well, you kind of opened up, and we talked a little bit about it. Every one of the candidates that's up for mayor have been asked if they would rehire Lincoln, who is, correct me if I'm wrong, Chief
Administrative Officer.
Chief Administrative Officer. And why do you think they're getting that? Why do you think they're getting that question? And would you rehire Lincoln?
Oh, well, I would certainly rehire Lincoln. Lincoln Saunders, who, by the way, does have a master's in public administration for those who question his qualifications, also approved unanimously by the Richmond City Council as well, has been the longest serving.
Approved unanimously?
Yes.
Okay, that's interesting. Considering
unanimous.
That's interesting.
So that means candidates who are running for mayor also voted for Mr. Saunders. He's the longest serving, I believe, since the Wilder administration. Maybe Byron Marshall with under Dwight Jones' administration, but he has been the chief administrative officer for 4 years. And let me tell you why this is important. People always want to compare us to Henrico County and Chesterfield County. And as I've always stated, that's apples and oranges, right? They're a county, we're a city. We have different demographics. We have different people with different challenges, right? They don't have the same challenges and demographics that we have. However, over there, they have a county manager, a county administrator, who has the luxury of being the top person in the administration for a long period of time. John Vitokas in Henrico has been around at least 12 years in his role. Joe Casey in Chesterfield County has been around at least almost 8 years in his role. In Richmond, we have a mayor who's in office for 8 years, and then they term out. It's the only term-limited local office.
Maybe 8 years.
Maybe 8 years. Yeah. There you go, because Wilder only served 4 years.
Yeah.
And so you're talking about the potential for turnover every 4 years. And we have the city council up at the same time as well. So the mayor and 9 members of city council and 9 members of school board all up at the same time. So there's potential for the chief administrative officer who runs the day-to-day operations of the administration could turn over every 4 years, while our county friends have the same person in charge of the administration for 12 years.
Is 12 years the term?
No.
In the county?
No, it's just, they can stay as long as they, they answer to the board of supervisors.
Okay, so if they have,
and the mayor and the chief administrative officer here answers to the mayor.
Okay.
As you may recall, I had a chief administrative officer, Lenora Reed, who was going to begin my second term with. She had a tragic health incident, and she had a stroke. And after that, I had to find someone to replace Ms. Reed. And Lincoln Saunders had served as my chief of staff for the 4 years. And I said, please serve as acting. This guy was on paternity leave with his, newborn. And I said, I need you to come back from paternity leave to take over as acting chief administrative officer. He showed and demonstrated he could do the job. And that's why I forwarded his name to the city council for approval as the full-time chief administrative officer. And under his tenure, we were able to finalize the deal for the Diamond District, $2.4 billion, the largest economic development project in Richmond's history. We were able to gain a AAA credit rating. We were able to add more dollars to Richmond Public Schools. More roads are being. We were able to fill up our ranks over at City Hall. Remember, after the pandemic, folks forget this. Folks were looking for jobs all over the state. We lost more civil servants after the pandemic because essentially some of them were burnt out. When we got back to work, we never stopped working during the pandemic. Right? These are essentially the front line of saving our city, keeping our city together. We lost firefighters, we lost police officers, we lost folks in social services, we lost folks in finance. His job was to essentially take an organization that had lost, a large percentage of its personnel and put that back together again. And we still attained a AAA credit rating from Wall Street. That's pretty accomplished. Yeah. But here's the deal. I have no expectation that the next mayor will rehire my chief administrative officer. But if you want to take a page out of my book, I believe that continuity and stability are important. It's important.
We see it in the counties. We see it in the counties.
That's right. When Dwight Jones, my predecessor, I rehired his chief administrative officer because what I heard from the community was, Mayor, if there's one thing I want to see is continuity and stability. My job is to provide the political and policy leadership of the city. It's this person's data who's responsible for the day-to-day operations of the city. I want some continuity. You can add the new direction policy-wise for where the city should go, but we need to make sure that the trains are running on time.
Are any candidates knocking at your door right now saying, hey, I'm
not going to reveal any private conversations.
Yeah.
But have people asked for my endorsement?
Well, I'm sure they've asked for your endorsement.
On now, yeah.
But are they asking, we've talked about this before, like the changing of the guard. Like are people trying to position themselves? Like, let's say such and such is elected. Do you feel like people are going to say, Stoney, I'd like you to help be involved in helping with this transition?
Well, here's the thing. My door is going to be wide open when the person is elected on November 5th. But if not, and it's a runoff, it's in the first weekend, the first Tuesday before Christmas. We're ready to go in their transition. We've already had all the candidates over for a briefing about the operations of Richmond city government, right? They have had private briefings from my administration.
Okay.
Can I just say something about those private briefings? That, I think some of them were shocked by the work that we have undertaken as an administration. It's one thing to go out there and campaign, because I believe campaigning is one part criticism. It's about criticizing, but also about promising. But you got to know the facts.
Yeah,
It's good to have a factual
foundation. We saw that last night with Trump.
That's right.
Kamal. Yeah.
Right, you just can't throw criticism and throw, and just throw out promises without some facts.
Yeah.
And the facts matter, because guess what? On day one, when January 1, when I give you the keys, it's yours now. It's yours. And so all that stuff you were saying out there on the campaign trail, and now you got to bring those promises home. Well, you found out, oh, wait a minute, we already do that. The city already does that. I heard something the other day. Someone said, oh, we need an Office of Gun Violence Prevention. We already have an Office of Gun Violence Prevention.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure you're hearing a lot.
I hear a lot of we already do that.
I will say this though. One of the things, and I want to try to get out a lot out here real fast. But one of the things
I'm do lightning round. What you trying to do?
Yeah, it's a lot here. I want to get out. But there's one of the things I want to applaud the candidates for that I've heard through in this seat that you're sitting in. They got a lot of ideas. And one of the things, I'm impressed with that. I'm more impressed if you can take your ideas and actually formulate them to, some goals and solutions. But
everybody likes ideas.
I've asked that though, because I sit over here sometime and I'm thinking I've had so many people say, Randy, you keep talking to these folks. Do you have any desire to do that? And I really don't, because I'm sitting here thinking nah, but the fact that these people have these ideas, I think this is what I've seen. I told them all this. I think that win or lose, you guys should all get together still and form a relationship.
Yeah.
Because you actually have a lot in common.
Yeah. And you're spending a lot of time with one another as well.
And you probably could create some successful things, regardless of you win or not. But I want to get into Carmax, but before we do, because I think that's gonna be a good way to end. Okay. A lot of people want to know your take on Winsome Sears and Abigail Spanberger. Because Winsome just formally recently, you can share whatever you like to share. What do you see that could come out of that campaign?
Well, I know that Abigail Spanberger is a formidable opponent for Winsome Sears, the lieutenant governor. And I respect Winsome Sears. To be a black woman and to be elected lieutenant governor in the Commonwealth of Virginia in the South is not a easy feat, right? So I have respect for that. However, I am no fan of any of her policies and her policy positions. Anyone who denigrates the LGBT community, denigrates I've heard her say things like welfare queens and, ghetto, fabulous and stuff like when you use terms like that, you are 100% disqualified.
Yeah.
And then remember what she did, because I believe moments matter. When there was a school shooting.
Yeah, I remember.
At a graduation.
You guys showed up at the same. Y'all was at the same spot. When you was at the press conference.
The chief and I leave after giving remarks and the superintendent.
Yeah.
And after that, she goes in there and just lays down this dirty rant about, who's at fault when we have two people who were just murdered. To me, that is totally disqualifying because these moments matter.
Yeah.
And are you going to be acting erratic in a moment in which, in a moment of tragedy? That's the chaos that I know that Virginians are absolutely allergic to. That's the same chaos you see from Donald Trump. And Virginians don't want that that type of chaos in their state. So Abigail Spanberger is a winner. She is someone who's fought for the working class. I know that she's going to champion issues which will allow for women to make choices over their own body. This is a person who I think that she speaks truth to power. It's not easy to go on Capitol Hill and speak truth to power, particularly within your caucus. She's done that on many occasions, and I think she'll be an excellent, and the first woman governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia.
Sounds like an endorsement.
I plan on voting for her. I plan on supporting her, and I plan on running with her next year. That is an endorsement.
Yeah. And how's things going for you?
I think it's all right. Here's the thing. I always say people, and it's just as how I feel. I'd rather be me than them. I'd rather be me than them, and
you're getting a lot of endorsements statewide. You're traveling.
We have nearly 100 endorsements from either elected or former elected leaders across the Commonwealth of Virginia. We have, the resources on hand at the moment. We obviously have some. We have to raise more of those resources to get my message out about, number one, what I've done. Number two, where I come from in terms of my upbringing. And number three, I want folks to see the passion that I bring to this job. The job I brought, the passion I brought to the job of being mayor, but the passion I'm going to bring to the job of being the lieutenant governor, which I think is being a champion for a fair shot. I'm going to run on what I call a fair shot agenda, giving every family in this state a fair shot. And what does that look like? Making sure that the rich and most powerful corporations in this state and income earners in the state pay their fair share, making sure that we have a minimum wage in this state that is respectful to the working class, ensuring that child care is affordable in this state. These are things I think that give people a fair shot, making sure that schools across the Commonwealth don't have as hard a time as building 21st century facilities that their kids can go into. This is what I believe is part of what I call a fair shot agenda, and that's what I'll be running on next year.
Sounds good, man. And you also, like I said, you have the beautiful family now. I think all that kind of complements. Like, I think people are going to be really appealing to you because you have Brandy, who we heard speak very well at the State of the City. Yeah, you have the baby girl. Your daughter looks just like you, in my opinion.
You think so?
The baby picture you posted of your grandma the other day?
Yes.
Y'all were just
from top to the bottom. Yeah. People always tell me me and my grandmother look alike. And I see, here's the thing, when you're a father, when you see the human being you bring home on day one, and you fast forward to where they are in 6 months, and you see that picture side by side, like, damn, like this is a different person. But now you add the personality. She's standing up now. Yeah.
And the reason why I mention your family, though, is because I think from a constituent standpoint, a voter standpoint, I think that, a man that represents family is a very attractive piece to someone that you want to elect to be in a position.
What I've always said, Randy, when people say, how is fatherhood? How is parenthood? Parenthood, fatherhood, family adds another dimension to one's life. I thought I was this person. Maybe I was just 2D, but now I'm 3D, right? Like I'm a better person because of my family. I'm a better person because of my wife. I'm a better person because of my daughter. And my why slightly changed a little bit. I did this work because of what I grew up seeing, my experience, and doing it for kids like me in my circumstances. But also, not only I do it for those kids still, but I do it for my daughter and her generation. And I want them to inherit a better society, a better community than the one that I was born into. That's what public service is all about. And so, yes, it's about the here and now, right? It's about when Miss Jackson walks out of her home in Randolph neighborhood, and she goes out to the front porch or goes out to the sidewalk. She'll look to the left, she'll look to the right. If she sees problems on the left and the right, she's going to let us know. She may look down and she may see something in the road. She's going to let us know. That's the here and now that we can solve. Mm-hmm. But part of being mayor is about the future as well. How do you chart a course that Richmond and its inhabitants are successful 20 years down the line?
Well, I think that's a good transition piece too, because as you are transitioning here, okay, you just been a great contributor to the future of Richmond as it pertains to its baseball community, because God knows if Richmond loves anything. Look, I'm not a baseball guy, but if Richmond loves anything,
Richmond loves baseball.
They love the baseball.
It's in our DNA.
They love the squirrels, and Carmax Park is going to be here for what sounds to be the next 30 years.
That's right.
So talk to us a little bit about that. And again, that also speaks to your legacy as well.
Yes. You know, we had
to end that way. I mean, I think that's
just something that should be celebrated, because remember, we have been unable for roughly 20 years, I believe, 14 years while the Squirrels were here. But I believe this conversation about a new ballpark for a baseball franchise in Richmond has been going on for at least 20 years. And there has been administration after administration that unfortunately struck out on this. And it's sometimes because of location, sometimes it's because of financing. There are a number of reasons why this issue was never resolved. To have been the first administration to actually solve the problem, right? Because this is about delivery, right? I am over the moon proud about this, because this has been a pestering issue for Richmond for many, many years. And this has been a part of the Richmond strategic plan, right? In order for Richmond to essentially mature, modernize as a city, what are you going to do about the 67 acres along I-95 that is adjacent to Scott's Addition? And when you put the Flying Squirrels, which has the best attendance in minor league, up against one of the best neighborhoods in the Commonwealth of Virginia, you mitigate risk. And we looked, we researched, we did the deep dives, we asked the questions, we brought the experts in, and we have a plan that will allow for us to build Carmax Park, but also to build out a whole entire neighborhood as well that will add to the tax rolls for 20, 30, 40 years to come. People think this is all about a baseball stadium. Wrong.
So there is strategy with how the neighborhood will evolve. Andreas made a reference recently on the show about how Manchester and Scott's Addition was kind of came, but they really wasn't strategically built, because
I wouldn't say it was haphazard, but it was sort of investors, the marketplace saw these areas as places of opportunity, and the investment flowed in. This time we are being intentional and strategic about this investment. Okay. The city's making an investment in terms of the baseball stadium, right? $170 million in financing total in terms of the infrastructure and the stadium itself.
Wow, from the city.
From the city. We are underwriting that part. We will the actual project itself.
Where the money come from?
Well, that's the AAA credit rating that we have, right?
Okay.
We're able to actually finance this project. Essentially, we're a co-signer on it. We're going to underwrite the thing, and then the new properties that will rise out of the ground will pay off the debt of building the stadium, which essentially will act as a catalyst for this new Diamond District neighborhood. But you're going to get affordable housing. You're going to get a new hotel. You're going to get a new central park, essentially, in the middle of this district. You're going to get local hiring and labor involvement as well. The people who will work, there will be someone's grandfather one day who will say, I helped build that. And that's the one knock on our country in general is we don't build anything anymore, right? There was a time where grandfathers and grandmothers could say, I was a part of that.
What would the seating be? How many people will it seat?
10,000 people. 10,000 people. So it'll be a venue, not just a ballpark, right? You heard Todd Parnell speak to that. This is going to be a venue. So not only will it have baseball games, you may like it, you may not, right?
Yeah, but I'll come see the concert.
But you'll come see some concerts. You'll come see all the community events that will occur there as well. And so now, let's look back under our watch. You have a new ballpark that's going to come out of the ground in 2026. You got a new amphitheater coming in downtown Richmond, which the city's a part of. People don't know that sometimes. That amphitheater that's going on the riverfront, the city is a part of that project.
Okay.
We help incentivize that project. You're getting CoStar.
Yeah.
Their tower will be the highest, the tallest tower in the entire Commonwealth of Virginia. We're a part of that project as well.
The tallest tower?
Yes.
Okay.
So it will surpass the Dominion Energy Center. Okay, right there on the river. You're also going to get the Shaco project.
When's that going to be up?
I think they got another. I think 2025, late 2025 or 2026.
Okay.
Then you got the Shaco project, which was our plan, which is partly funded with our dollars and state dollars, and also philanthropic dollars under this administration. Then you're going to get City Center as well, which will the demolition of the Coliseum and the construction of a future 500-room hotel that will also change the skyline here in the city of Richmond.
What's the date of that?
I don't know. I don't have an exact date. The plan for us is to have the master developer of that project selected before I leave office.
Yeah, I think I saw in the RTD maybe this morning that the Coliseum will be tore down probably 2025.
That's my hope.
Yeah.
That's my hope. And then so I just listed, I think, 5 projects right there. I say that because remember I just
say it strong.
remember I say that because I said this is also about the future as well.
Yeah. Turning the page.
We have worked on the here and now, right? You have better roads now. You have more funding for your public schools now. You have more funding for your parks now. You have more parks land now, more park acres than you ever had before. But also this is about the future as well.
Yeah.
And so these projects that are in the queue will be the gift that keeps on giving for the city of Richmond for years and years to come.
That's for the next mayor, you definitely got a chapter waiting for you.
And I think that chapter is bright.
Yeah.
It's a bright future ahead for the city of Richmond. And I'm glad to play my role for my 8 years, and I know the next person will add to that.
Yeah. How do you want to close, sir? You've said a lot of great things. I mean, we could keep going, but they told me that you have
I'm on
got a busy
every day
schedule.
I'm on a time crunch. I will say this though. I'm just going to say that it truly has been an honor. Now,
always.
It's my hope that I could come back here and do an exit interview towards the end of my time here. The next,
we always love having you, man.
Talk about my campaign for lieutenant governor as well.
Do you realize how you're raising the stock of the platform, sir? So anytime.
Well, it's number one.
And Richmond Magazine, a great platform. Richmond Magazine told us that.
It's a great platform. Yeah. It's a great platform. Here's the thing: more people are finding their news from different outlets than the everyday legacy news, like the newspaper or the news stations. This is a way to do that, and I'm glad that we are able to have a thorough conversation about the city of Richmond, the state of the city, and what the city could be 10, 20 years from now.
Yeah,
so
definitely the candidates for mayor have shared with me that one of the things they've enjoyed the most about our conversations is that they've had longer than 90 seconds to get their thought off, and we enjoy listening. Actually,
can I give some advice to your candidates, to our candidates?
Say that one more time.
Can I give some advice to our candidates?
Please.
And that is, don't wait till the Randy Wilson podcast to get your story out. You have but so many days left in this calendar year before there's an election and people actually start voting. You need to get your message out now. And number 2, you need to start, if you want, there's no separation currently in this race. There's no separation. There's no real tier. Everything's just real flat.
Yeah.
I think the emotion and the enthusiasm is flat.
Yeah.
You have to separate yourself from the pack. And so how are you going to do that? Tell folks what you want to do. Chart that future. This is about vision casting, right? If I hear one more person talk about the chief administrative officer and who they're going to pick and what they're looking for, no one cares about those personnel processes.
Yeah.
What they care about, though, is, are we going to be the best place to raise a child? Are we going to be the best place to live? Are we going to be the best place for in terms of safety? How do we go about doing that? What's your plan? What's your idea? What's your vision? I haven't seen anyone run on a big idea. I've never been a part of a campaign or at least seen a campaign that doesn't have one big idea. Even, as I watch this presidential race, there's some ideas I totally don't like.
Yeah.
But the guy has an idea.
Yeah.
Kamala Harris has better ideas.
Yeah.
But this is about ideas.
Yeah.
And so you said there's been folks sitting in this chair talking about different ideas. What's the one big idea that you have? I'll leave the question, I'll leave them to answer it, and I'll leave the voters to make their decision.
One of the things I've shared with them, and I'll also share with you, because it's really important to me, is that I'm not seeing candidates tap into the mental health community, to the nursing homes, the assisted living facilities. These are places
Senior facilities.
These are places where there are votes that they want to cast, and they need someone to come to them.
That's right.
And that could change an election.
That's right. That's called, you got to be strategic to do that.
Yeah, it could change an election.
Change an election.
So again, this is 804 for the Culture. I'm Randy Wilson. It's been a pleasure to have Mayor Levar Stoney. He'll be back, and we'll be back. Stay tuned. We're out.